Okay, let's finish up problem 15 and finish up the review here. Last thing we were working on the last section was this piecewise function. Number 37, we had graphed its first piece. We'd taken a look at x is our function, 3x here, our first piece. It went from -2 to 1. We did that. This was an open circle. Because it did not include that value. This was a less than symbol, whereas this was an equal to, less than or equal to symbol, so it did include this point. So we went all the way to the point 1, 3 up here. So we'd graph this piece. Now we need to graph the second piece here, which is x, and then x plus 1 is our f of x value, so x plus 1. Now we're starting at 1 here and being greater, so 1, 2, 3. We'll just graph a few points. We put 1 into this. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. We graph this piece, remembering that as before, this symbol is not equal to, so this is an open circle as well on this piece. So at 1, 2, we would have an open circle right here. At 2, 3, we'd have another dot. At 3, 4, we would have another dot. We would be continuing to go in that direction because it's always greater than, so it would travel off it to the right in that direction. Now the only intercept, so this is what I would be graphing. I'd look at that. That was part C, graphing the function. So I looked at it in pieces, I graphed it. Now I'm going to use that to help me find the domain. The domain of the function actually is right here. We didn't really need to graph it to find the domain. The domain is this combination here. Let me erase this. It's this combination right here of the if statements. So if we just put those together into one thing, that's the domain. So the domain on this one is starting at -2, going to 1, including 1, and then going up. So it's the union of those two things. So we would just say we'd start at -2, we end up at 1, but we continue, so it just keeps going up to infinity. So our domain is -2 to infinity. It's the two sets together. So if you wrote them separately, it's going to be -2 to 1, bracket, union, 1 to infinity. But those actually are one. We can write one interval there, and this is the interval that I'd rather see, even though these are the same. That's the domain. That's part A. Part B is locate intercepts. So if we look at the graph after we did part C, the only intercept I see here is 0, 0. That's the only intercept possible. So for part B, 0, 0 is my only intercept. See, I graphed it based on the graph, find the range. So the range is how high and how low does it go? Well, it goes all the way down to -6 and then just continues to go up from there. So the range here is starts at -6 with an open circle, and it goes all the way up to infinity. It just keeps going up. It doesn't stop. This thing just keeps going up. So here's our range. Now E says, is it continuous on the domain? Well, if we look at this, it actually jumps right here. So E is no, because it's not continuous at 1. Not continuous at x equals 1. So we've answered all the questions that have to do with this piecewise graph. Now there will be a question like this on the test, so you might want to try another one if you are still confused. Here is actually another one that we're going to do as well, and I'm going to do it in this order. So we're going to graph the function, and then we're going to look at its values to evaluate that. Now on this one, our breaking point here is at -1. It looks like it goes all real numbers both directions. So it's going to be both of these things graphed off in two arrows in two different directions. One's going to be less than -1, one's going to be greater than -1. So when we're graphing this thing on the graph, our cutoff value here is at -1 on the x-axis. So what we need to do here is I'm going to make a chart for the first one, 2x plus 1. But it says x is less than -1, so I'm going to start at -1 and I'm going to go down, -2, -3, and so on. On my second chart, for the second part of this, I'm going to say x is that x value, but it's going to start, this one is x minus 4. And in this one, I'm going to start at -1, but I'm going to go greater than. So that's 0, 1, 2. All right, so I'm just doing that. I'm going to be graphing these points and then making an arrow going off in this direction both ways, because it continues going up and down in this way. So if I put -1 in here, -1 times 2 is -2, plus 1 is -1. I've evaluated it. -2 here is -4, plus that is -3. -3 is -6, plus 1 is -5, and so on. So in the second one, I put in -1, I subtract 4, so this is -5. 0 minus 4 is -4. 1 minus 4 is -3. 2 minus 4 is -2. So those are my chart values. So I'm going to graph these in two different colors so you can see the difference here. Let's graph this one in red on this side. So I start at -1, -1. Now looking up here, again, I have to see if this is open circle or closed. When I look at the chart, first value always is the value that's in there, so I'm going to look to see if it's open or this is an open circle here, and this one is closed over here. So on this chart, or open circle at -1, -1, it looks like we're going to just be in the negative region. So let me, whoops, that's not what I want. I want to be at this, sorry. I want to be at this. So let's extend down here and redraw this graph so it's in the negative region only. So let's try doing that, because I don't see any positive answers here, so it's just going to be down here in these values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't go any lower than that I see right now in the chart. Okay, so let's graph these. We're going to go -1, -2, -3, and then 0, 1, 2. Okay, so I'm going to graph these. First one is an open circle at -1, -1, which is right here. You have an open circle right there. Let's erase this and make it more. So this is -1, and we have an open circle right here. Out of the way. So -2, -3, 1, 2, 3 is a dot, and -3, -5 is right here at this dot. So we have a function going off in this direction on the first piece. So that's the first piece. It's going to continue in this direction. As it gets more negative, it's going to get more negative there. The second graph, let's graph that in green. Like Christmas, I guess, I forgot here. So green, -1, -5 is a closed circle. -1, -5 right here is a closed circle. 0, -4 is here. 1, -3 is here. 2, -4 is here. So this is going to continue off. Eventually it's going to cross. We might want to know what that is. It's going to cross at 4 because it goes up 1 each time. So it's just going to cross through there. It's going to cross through there like that and continue on in that direction. So this is the graph. All right, it has all real numbers for the domain, and it looks like it goes up and down forever too, so it's all real numbers for the range as well. Now if we want to find out which values this is, we just need to know which chart do we plug it into. So if we do g of -5, let's see, g of -5, the question is, do we put -5 in this chart or in this chart? Well, we look at the x values here. This one's going up, this one's going down, so g of -5 would actually go here, so we would plug it into this chart. So that'd be -10 plus 1 or -9. So the answer to this is -9. It's on this red piece of the graph. Whereas g of 2, we already know where that is because I've done it already in this chart. It's in this chart, that's going to be -2. Right? So that concludes the review of the test 1. So if you have any questions, you can send me an email about the test. Make sure you register for the test online, and good luck in studying.